This is Your Favorite Character Sucks with John.
Oh, we're rolling. Matt.
And Brandon.
A podcast where we look at characters in our favorite books and decide which is the best. Well, not just books, right? Movies, TV shows.
Any form of media, really, yeah.
Right. How does one determine media? How does one determine what the best character is? Well, with our extensive literary knowledge and a level of confidence possessed only by an American man, we can discover the answer to any question. Before we begin, my conscience would not let me go on without first saying that this podcast has assumed you are familiar with the series being discussed. If you haven't read, listened to, watched, or gone on an acid trip that has revealed to you the plot of the series under discussion, then you should stop listening now until you've read or watched whatever we're talking about. You have been warned. On today's episode, Community, the one where we watch the old show that references old shows. I want to do something that we have failed to do on every episode, which is actually introduce our guests.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
well, let's talk about the elephant in the room first.
Okay.
That Brandon's not here.
Oh yeah, Brandon, co-host of the podcast, really the bellwether, is that what you call it? The person who kind of keeps us together, the touchstone.
Sure, yeah.
He's not here today because there's not really a good reason, but he's just not here. But we do have, and I'll let you
better things to do, I guess.
That's true.
No, that is actually true.
I'll let you introduce yourself so you can whatever name you want to go by on this podcast. You know what I mean?
It's whatever. I guess.
Mac.
Yeah, Mac.
Jeff?
Max. Most people call me Mac, so yeah. I guess
Mac.
we'll go with that.
All right. So we've got Mac here.
If you want to be deferential, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lou.
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
me.
Back-to-back Lou's
And then of
in
course
these shows.
Matt and John. Now Lou is calling in from Portland, so that's why she sounds a little bit different. I did not say this in a previous podcast where we had someone calling in, and I didn't even.
Sounds different because she's from Portland. Not
She's
because
also from
calling
Portland, so
in,
that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just sound better.
She's from Houston. She's from Houston.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's just better. Up in
I
the
have home videos of her being like, Jonathan. She did have that accent at one point in her life.
Are we going to cut that into the
She had a
right?
southern twang.
What happened is
Yeah.
I moved to New York City when I was 18, and I thought somebody would murder me, so I had to kill the accent immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Well, this was New York in the what? The
In the early
2000s?
90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah. You definitely
94.
get stabbed. Yeah.
Yeah, 94.
Well,
Were things more dangerous back then?
I don't
I mean,
know.
yeah.
I mean, in my head they were.
I mean, it's not as bad as in the 70s, according to
the country's
Dukes,
mayor.
You know.
The country's mayor had cleaned things up at that point.
Right. They got rid of all the porn in Times Square and whatever.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
See the Dukes. See?
Okay.
It's
And I think
historical.
now New York is probably safer because all the gentrification, right? That's one of the benefits.
Yeah.
It's
stopping
what?
and frisking. Yeah, all that. Gentrification is one of the benefits he said. But
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay, so a lot of that will get cut from the podcast, but so we're here today to talk about Community, a show that is no longer on air, but
Dan Harmon's Community. No,
Yes.
Dan Harmon's Community. Is there another Community?
Well, they're towards the end, yeah.
Oh,
'Cause
well,
remember
no, fourth season, just the fourth season. Everything else is Dan
middle
Harmon.
season, right?
Oh, okay,
Everything
yeah,
else
that's
is
what
Dan
it was,
Harmon,
yeah.
yeah.
I remember they
So-
kicked him out for a little bit, and then he came back.
So
So,
let's do our opening statements, and then I really do want to talk about Dan Harmon and Community because I feel like you
Wait, is this a
cannot.
Dan Harmon podcast?
No, I feel like you can't talk about Community or the characters without talking about Dan Harmon because
No, it's
I feel
true.
like the 4 or 5 best characters are all extensions of his personality. And I'm already talking about it, but I guess I'll just keep talking about it. And I've listened to Harmontown.
So is your character Dan Harmon?
My character's not Dan Harmon, but I thought about going meta and doing that because this is a meta show,
no, that
right?
makes sense.
But I didn't. But anyway, Harmontown. Lou, how much of Harmontown did you listen to, or did you just watch the documentary?
I've watched a few Harmontowns, but I watch Dan Harmon work out every other morning on Instagram.
Oh, nice. On
This
Instagram.
is one
yeah.
of my secrets.
okay.
Yeah.
He's been getting into shape lately,
Okay.
and he's been
For what
posting on
role?
Instagram just to
So-
be in shape. He wants to
So
be in
much
shape.
so that I'm one of 10 people who we all know each other in the chats, and we just
No way.
Oh yeah, no, it's hardcore.
That's
I'm
awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
beginning to feel outclassed
One
in
of,
terms
one
of
of
this
them,
community.
one of them,
I know, yeah.
one of them just got brought on stage on a recent episode.
Oh
of
yes, it
Harmontown.
was
So-
MLE805. She's one of my homies. Yeah.
Oh my
Oh my
goodness,
God, good
this is
Lord.
wild.
deeply uncomfortable that
we
you know
have
this
a
person.
famous person on the podcast.
Basically.
Oh,
Yeah.
good Lord.
So Dan Harmon, I've listened to every episode of Harmontown, and what's weird about it is now rewatching Community. I watched Community the first time without knowing who Dan Harmon was, and then I I watched it the first time without knowing who he was, and then I listened to Harmontown. I've listened to 400 something episodes of Harmontown. I've spent 400 plus hours of my life with Dan Harmon.
With him.
I mean, literally.
I feel the same way, but with video, like watching him work out and transform his body.
No, watching him work out.
Way too intimate.
No, I think that's way better though.
Yeah,
it's
is this
great.
like a live stream thing?
Yeah,
yeah. He live
he does it on
streams
Instagram.
it. He's getting really extreme with it. He has like multiple GoPros. Like his trainer wears a GoPro helmet.
Also, for you kids, he's the creator of Rick and Morty as well. So if you love Rick and Morty, you should check out Community, where he really gets his first successful show. But after listening to Harmontown and watching Community again, it feels very bizarre to me. I literally feel like the show, even though we're talking about characters, and we are going to talk about characters, I feel like that show is so writer-driven and so his personality extended. It feels very bizarre to watch it after like getting to know him.
Getting to know him.
I know who he is because I've listened to him talk for 450 hours, and he gets very personal. He talks about everything.
hours is not enough time to know someone.
He talks about, for instance, a story that he tells about how he sees race is one thing that his mom did whenever he was little was she brought him 2 different dolls, and his mom was trying to be progressive, and she got him a black doll and a white doll, and she was trying to be progressive, but he said she went about it the wrong way because what she did was she gave them to him, and he's like, okay, great. But then she goes, do you see that, Dan? Do you see that there's not any real difference there? And he goes, yeah, Mom. And she goes, they're black. One's black and one's white, but there's no difference. And he's like, well, now all I can think about is that one is black and one's white. And so if you watch Community, though, so much of that humor is there of like sort of the like, it's like a guilt of like, I see race and I have racist thoughts, but I know that they're wrong and I know what the right thing to do and say is. And I feel like Pierce is an extension of that. Like, the just pure unadulterated like old school, not really understanding what's right and what's wrong and just saying whatever he thinks.
He's the id of Dan Harmon's ego or his personality.
Maybe even, but I think Dan Harmon tries so much harder than Pierce does to say the right thing and do the right thing.
No, I'm saying he's the id.
Yeah, exactly. So like on Harmontown, for instance, like Dan Harmon will like bring somebody up, and then if it's transgendered, he's very like sensitive to those things. Like he's really trying hard to be progressive, but he doesn't hide the fact that he has thoughts. Like he talks about like like I grew up in the 80s and stuff, and like I think this way. I'm trying not to though. But anyway, I'm gonna have to cut that in later because let's do opening statements first. Who wants to do their character first? Matt, always you want to go last?
I always go last.
You don't always go last, but you I think you went first on one episode or second on one episode.
We've only done.
You've done 3.
4.
This is the 4th one, yeah.
I've been in 3.
Okay.
And out of the 3, I've always been last.
Okay. Does any guest want to go first, or I'll go first?
I guess you go first, and then I'll go.
I think you should go first, so that way everybody.
I'm split between 2 characters, so. One of these is my honorable mention, and one of them is the character that I'm going to go with. I'll figure it out after I say them out loud.
No matter what you say, it's going to be racist, though.
Ben Chang is his name, his full name on the show.
Ken Jeong.
Yeah. Ben Chang and Pierce are my 2 characters. One of them is my honorable mention, and one of them is the character that I'm going to argue for today.
No matter what you say, there's no right answer, right?
I'm going to argue for Ben Chang. I think Ben Chang is the best character because every show needs a heel or a villain to sort of bounce things off of. The characters need something to challenge them. And I feel like Ben Chang, at the beginning, he was a villain of sorts because he was just a hard-ass teacher. And there's some great scenes of him being the Spanish teacher and just being hilarious. And, the way he does his hands is like, hasta luego. Like, he's very, like, expressive. Should not be the Spanish teacher, but is.
Why not?
For many reasons. But
I'd like to be...
He is...
I'm interested. What are some of those reasons?
It's purely race-based. No. He shouldn't be the Spanish teacher because he
doesn't know Spanish.
He's not qualified.
That's the main reason, yeah.
We find out later that he's not qualified, right?
Yeah.
So then when we find out he's not qualified, he wants to join their study group. And so it becomes this like character that's causing conflict with that. But then he starts to become a villain where he's like, I'm taking their group down and I'm taking Greendale. And so his character evolves a lot throughout the show and then eventually becomes sort of part of the group as we know, actors sort of got sick of the whole, is the show coming back? Is it not kind of thing? And Dan Harmon's not on this season. Now he's back. And so, characters left and came. But he stayed there, and his character changed, and I think that he's a great character on the show, and that's the character I'm going with. But honorable mention Pierce because he plays a similar role, and I think that he is one of 4 characters that really is part of Dan Harmon's personality.
Which is a plus to you.
And he's Chevy Chase, who was apparently an asshole to work with, but
That's what I've heard too.
But delivers the shit out of that character and really commits and like does a great job. So honorable mention Pierce.
The character makes me believe that Chevy Chase is an asshole, which also just turns out he is an asshole.
He is an asshole.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
the thing
even acting.
is Chevy Chase has been that way for years and years and years.
He's always
Like,
played an asshole. Like even on the Vacation movie, he's an asshole who's like looking at other women and like that kind of thing. Yeah.
All right, so I guess I'll go with mine. Again, I had a hard time picking between 2 because I really like Troy and Abed because they kind of come together as a package deal. But then, having to split it down and get to just one, it was kind of hard because, again, like I said earlier, I love the all the references to all the pop culture that Abed is, but then...
Which is the show.
That's the whole show.
And then I think of... For me, I think that Troy just
played by Donald Glover. Yeah,
Donald Glover or Childish Gambino.
That's the first thing I remember him doing.
Well,
he was a writer on 30 Rock.
He was a writer on 30 Rock. He did stand up, and then actually, we'll probably talk about it later. But when he started kind of disappearing from the show was when his Childish Gambino started taking off, and he started going on tour, so he couldn't always be there for the show.
And then he went to film Atlanta. He got a deal from FX.
Yes, and so that's one of the things that kind of brought the show down for me. It was once he left, I just kind of was like, oh, okay. And then he would pop up randomly, and you're like, this is just weird.
So Troy.
So definitely Troy was going to be mine because
he's part of that dynamic duo, but then also after he left, you felt...
dynamic duo, and then also just the amount of one-liners that he has that you're like, what in the world is he talking about?
Yes.
Like, they're just out there. Yeah. So, good times.
Well, I feel like I should follow that up because... I picked Abed, and
hey, there we go.
Yeah, and
the show could be. I feel like people who never heard of the show would recognize the names Troy and Abed paired together because it's just like it's probably what gets broadcasted the most from people who watch the show.
Well, yeah,
is it
Troy and Abed? Troy and Abed
in the morning.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
and then Troy and Abed in the mornings.
Yeah,
late nights.
So I mean, basically, you've already said it, but Abed is the show. I mean, he is the meta of a meta show. He's the one to sort of break the fourth wall for us constantly, and I mean, there's an episode where he makes films about what the group is going to do before they even do it, which is just wonderful. And I mean, I think I love his I think he must be one of the 4 that you're talking about, Jonathan, because I feel like he is the autistic OCD version of Dan Harmon's brain, which he very much has,
He's the spectrum part of Dan Harmon, and also the film and TV show appreciation part of Dan Harmon.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So we'll get into that whenever I get there. But
that's all.
Matt.
This is as fast as it's ever gone.
No, it's never been this.
We're like boom, boom, boom.
You seem a little docile. I want you to bring it up.
The problem is now I was like desperately trying to think of should I continue down the same path?
Yes. You have a great character.
But
not just the great character, the best character.
Troy.
Say something about
Troy. I have to agree with you. When Troy started disappearing from the show, it was really depressing. And I know it was because Gambino was taken off, which is totally awesome. Hats off, love Childish. But
you didn't feel the
he was
same
sick of the tug of war. He was sick of the tug of war.
Oh, right.
He was sick of are we going to be on next year?
Is it? Yeah,
no, that's reasonable.
Yeah. It's like if your star is taking off, you can't sit there and keep doing the show that you. And also, working with Dan Harmon is sort of like, I feel like it's almost like a what is it when you are kidnapped and you begin to believe and trust your kidnapper? What is it called? The
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah. I feel like there's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome where it's like everything he does is amazing and you love it, but then also he is. He's so problematic the way he deals with people. He's Abed in that he doesn't know how to deal with people, but then he's also Jeff Winger and Pierce in that he's an asshole.
Did you guys listen to that This American Life with the apology, the Dan Harmon apology to the woman who was working on Community?
I heard the Dan Harmon apology live on Harmontown.
Oh, nice. Okay, so check out I'm sorry, just side note, everyone should check this out. It's on This American Life. And I think it's, I can't remember the name of the episode, but I'm sure you could just Google it.
I'm going to get into that because that is part of the reason he lost his show. So I want to talk about that in a minute. But go ahead, Matt.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that
opening statement.
That is, it's a great episode of This American Life because you get not only his apology, but you also get her. She speaks. And,
yes.
And she wrote the Law and Order episode of Community, which is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good app.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many good specific apps. I wish we had just done.
Well, that's what I was going to say, too.
Pick your favorite app.
This show is really, it's got great characters for sure. And it's also full of amazing, like, one-liner jokes.
Yeah.
But then it also, like, no other show, because I was trying to think of shows to compare it to. 30 Rock, because it's surreal. Like, stuff happens that could never happen, and the one-liners are great.
Yeah.
Scrubs is surreal, and one-liners are great. Yeah. But I feel like as far as iconic episodes go, I can maybe remember a couple of things that happened on 30 Rock that I really loved. But, like, I can remember entire episodes because they were so different than anything, and they're
absolutely
iconic.
Insane.
Yeah. So yeah, we could do that. We could talk about like episode appreciation.
Yeah,
on the show.
if you just talk about specific episodes, then I think it's easier.
I do not like.
Cast members.
I don't love recap shows, like podcasts that recap shows, but I feel like I could actually tolerate a community recap because
but you wouldn't seek it out.
Recapping a community episode would actually be very interesting because each episode is so different. Then it's not just like today this character did that. It's like
a hard choice to do on this podcast
shows
because
are like dry though.
All the characters are so good. It's really hard to pick one on Community.
Most of them are good. Some of them are pretty bad.
But some of them are bad in a way that you love that they're bad. You know, like Shirley. Clearly, no one's going to pick her as their favorite character.
Shirley, no. Shirley is not a standout character, and
I like Shirley.
I'll tell you why after the opening statement. Go, Matt.
Oh yeah. So back and forth. There's a lot of different good characters. Dean Pelton, though.
Dean Pelton.
Dean Pelton is such.
His name is Craig Pelton, but Dean is his title, right? Yeah.
Well, I don't care because he's the dean.
Yeah.
Not really a main character. I feel like he gets more time the longer the show goes on.
Yes, yeah.
At the beginning of the show, he usually just delivers the MacGuffin or whatever to the party. Yeah. Right. He
just makes
says,
a
"This
Dean
is
pun.
happening.
Yeah.
Come do something." He makes a pun, but I think later on the show,
wears an insane outfit.
Yeah, wears and as the show goes on, I feel like his personality just gets more and more extreme.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning of the show, you're willing to accept that maybe he's just like a guy who's really bad at his job.
Yeah. Well, he works at a community college.
Yeah.
Well, he's still a dean.
That's the thing, but the thing is it's Dan Harmon.
I'd love to be a
Dan
dean
Harmon
at a
is
community
taking
college.
a shot at higher education.
But it's not even a good community college, though.
It's terrible.
It's like it's the lowest of the low, and then he's the dean of that school.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
lowest of the
low
low.
would be
And
city
he's not even a
college.
good dean, and so it's like it's just
Nobody's
that's one of
writing
his
home
fears.
about that job. That's not
One of his fears is that he's not a good dean.
Yeah.
And that's part of his character development.
I
as it
love
goes on throughout
his
these
character
seasons.
is very strong because he's got so many insecurities that come
he
and
just
play
wants
out.
people to like him. He
Yeah.
just
Absolutely.
really wants everyone to love him.
He also wants Greendale to be successful.
that too, but
Which is so absurd
in
because
that
it's so
way,
shitty.
so
exactly.
terrible. And he keeps putting on all these different like events and like
The human beings.
Yeah. Oh my God. So
Human beings.
So the episode where he invites Troy to be on the football team, and he comes in and he's standing at the table and he goes, he's like, "Look at you guys passing the conversation around like a football." Speaking of football, and he tries to get Troy, who was a star quarterback, to be on the football team. And yeah, that whole episode is great because then they come up with him and Pierce come up with the human beings, which again feels like to me that conversation that Dan Harmon's having with his mom, where it's like we're not trying to be racist, but in trying not to be racist, it's fucking racist.
The white skin suit, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that
I love like we have all skin colors from seal to seal's teeth, like and at the end it's like a what is it called, like a gimp, like it's almost like a gimp
Yes,
suit.
it's a gimp suit.
With like lipstick on his face. It's the most horrifying
It's
thing.
terrifying.
And it is
Creepiest character
there.
of all time.
It's there forever.
Yeah.
It's from the first season on. It never goes away.
No.
And their flag being a butthole, not realizing it, that is the flag
Legitimately a butthole.
forever.
We'll be right back to the show after this exciting announcement of Dan Harmon's new community project. All fans of Community know that the writers and actors on that show put 6 seasons in a movie out into the universe, and the universe answered back. By hook or by crook, by Hulu and Yahoo Screen, we finally got our 6 seasons. But what about the movie? Well, I'm excited to announce, with Dan Harmon's blessing, that the Community movie is here. That's right, the Community movie is welcoming back all of our favorite characters in what's being described as a meta magical experience. But as a Community fan, you already know it's not going to be easy to find. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to get a pen and paper to take notes. Pop, pop. Here we go. First, you've got to go to the NBC Network page and find the Community tab. Haven't found it yet? Well, keep looking. It's there. It just moves around from spot to spot. And if you don't find it in the first 10 minutes, a message will pop up saying that the show is on hiatus while Dan Harmon feuds with the network. Once you do finally click on the link, you'll notice something strange. It's taking you to Yahoo's screen. Is that still a thing? We don't know. But once you're there, you'll find a dozen other links. Some contain viruses, some contain a broken CISO link, and just one contains the actual audio file for the movie. Don't have QuickTime Player? You better download it because that's the only way to watch this film. Now there's nothing left to do except for sit back, expand that QuickTime box, and enjoy the Community movie. Uh-oh. As a Community fan, you won't be surprised that 2/3 the way through this film, an error message pops up saying that the film has been canceled by the network. But the last third of the film is out there. All you've got to do is take to social media and start a grassroots movement to save the last third of the film. Once you've got over 100,000 retweets, Chevy Chase will slide into your DMs and invite you to a Skype call in which he'll deliver the final instructions to view the last third of the film in the most disoriented and yet endearing way possible. Congratulations, folks. We finally have our 6 seasons and a movie.
The main thing about the Dean is that Dean Pelton is a driving force for like every single episode that he is in.
Round robin, let's talk about Dean Pelton, which is my favorite episode. I think they're the 2 best episodes when there's a million good episodes, right? My 2 favorite episodes, the Dice episode, obviously. He got nominated for like Hugo Awards, stuff like that. The Dean's not even in that. Yeah. You think it's the best episode?
I think so too.
I think the best episode is the one with your character in it. So maybe you want to
the Dice episode is by far.
All right, well, you're shooting yourself in the foot, but okay. No, but Dean is in one of my favorite episodes, which is when he's trying to make a commercial for the community college. And he becomes a crazy obsessive director. And there's a part where he finds out that Luis Guzman is going to be in the film. And that's whenever he starts going overboard because a star is going to be in this film.
Yes.
And so it is going to be perfect. I've got to go home and rewrite all the parts and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so he comes back the next day and like there's a scene where Britta and Troy are supposed to hug and go, it's a place where you can be different. And he makes them do the same thing 100 times.
Yeah.
And
he turns into Kubrick is what it is.
He turns into Kubrick.
He turns into Kubrick filming The Shining.
He's sitting there.
Shelley Duvall just making her do that same scene over and over and over.
And he goes
until it's perfect.
He goes, I'm trying to take a 400-year-old dagger out of the back of America, and you are just hugging. And it's one of my favorite lines ever. Like this dude's trying to solve
and it's just like
slavery and racism.
It's just shitty like community college
with a white woman telling a black man, you can be different, and that's supposed to solve everything. And Troy,
that's how you solve it. Is you have a white person tell a black person.
Yes, the white person has to be the agent.
You've got to have the white savior. You know? I mean, look at the Oscars.
And so Troy's on the ground crying like by the 100th take, and he's like, why do she keep saying I'm different? Like he's so upset about it. And last thing I'll say about this episode, because we can't just talk about every episode, but we'll go over a few, is then it gets to the point where Jeff, who has been in a bald cap getting ready to play the Dean for 2 weeks and planned on like trying to get out of it by being super flamboyant, but the Dean loved it. He was like you have found gold, Winger. He comes to set for the first time. He's been wearing the ball cap for 2 weeks, and he does his scene, which is just to say like one line. It's stupid.
Yeah.
And the Dean goes, take off the ball cap. And he goes, what? And he goes, take off the fucking ball cap. It's fake. I don't like it. I don't want that Hollywood shit on my set. And he's like, I've been wearing this ball cap for 2 weeks. I have bald friends now. This is who I am. And he goes, take it off, Winger, or you're out. And Chang is his understudy, and Chang has a Jeff Winger wig on with a bald cap on top of that so that he can be Jeff being the Dean.
Yeah, taking the ball cap off.
And then he steps up, and he takes the ball cap off, and he's got Jeff Winger's hair underneath, and the Dean turns to him, and he goes, that's real. To Chang.
Can we also talk about the Dean's unhealthy obsession with Jeff Winger?
I just watched an episode this morning about when the Dean actually tricks Jeff into going to a sale at the Gap so that he can show up at the mall and then blackmail him into hanging out with him all day. They go to like a Mexican food restaurant and have a mariachi band sing for them and record karaoke.
The most cringeworthy character on the show, probably.
Dean, so
right?
creepy. It's so great.
If you like The Office or any of those other like super cringeworthy comedies,
I don't like those shows, but I
love the Dean. Yeah.
The Dean Pelton is just so good.
I like that the Dean, when he tries to do something good, it always ends up being bad, and then it's just backfires. The snowball effect of the small little thing. Just by the end of the episode is gigantic. like with the paintball episode or episodes.
Yeah, there's many, yeah.
Where, it started off as just, it was going to be this fun little thing, and then it just goes completely haywire and destroys the entire campus.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to do something nice, and he was trying to do something good for the school, and to get people, like, to, love the school.
People excited about the school, exactly.
But then, in doing that, he then has people destroy the school that he's trying to then promote and trying to get... And I love stuff like that. Like, I love movies like that where the small little thing just snowball effects.
And you'll find that Dean basically has, like, no limits either in that... Because in that episode, he's like... When he releases Chang or whatever, like, what will he not do? Yeah, exactly. And
it does that music?
Exactly.
What's that music from? What movie is that parody?
I don't know, but it is so...
I can't remember off the top of my head. If I hear it again...
When it happens, that scene happens when Bustin'. Is it, like, offensive?
Tweet us at YFCS Pod on Twitter and let us know what movie is he parodying.
This is mildly offensive, right? But it's...
No, it's from a movie. They're parodying a lot of times... See, and a lot of times, the jokes they crack, like, I remember... on the last episode of the series, they're pitching what a season 7 could be, and it's a pretty emotional episode because they're saying goodbye to the show, and it's pretty cool because Jeff, who did not want to be there in the beginning, now can't think, like, it's a good ending actually.
Can't think of where he would be without it,
and he doesn't want to leave it. And so it's a great. That's cool. It's a cool parallel between episode 1 and the final episode, right? But they do point out because they have God, what's the guy's name who did the voice of Spawn? I think on the animated series, and he's in the last season. Black dude, I can't remember his name.
Oh yes, yeah. I can't think of his name.
We look him up.
I was gonna say,
so anyway,
I can't think of his name.
he's on the show, and he's going to like LA or whatever, and they're pitching like, what would a season 7 be? Because Abed says like, our season's ending or something. Like, come on, Abed, and then they're like, well, let's pitch a show. And so anyway, they're like, what would we do? We have like Shirley back because he's not going to be there, and like they're like, whoa, that's racist. And it's like, well, come on, man, like. And the dean goes, why can't we have Shirley, him, and even another black guy? Like, and it shows in the pitch.
Keith David?
Keith David, yeah. Keith
Elroy
David
is the character.
He plays Elroy, and he's cool because he like brings this whole like technology and like what is it, a virtual reality type world that Dan Harmon is obsessed with. He brings that into it. But anyway, so they play with race. I mean, they talk about race a lot and sort of like the balance of the group, and even the characters that are weaker. I think we could start with that because we're going to talk about Abed and Troy and everybody. But the characters who are weaker, I think, do serve as a flavor, like an essential flavor. Like, you can have spaghetti, but if you don't have the seasoning, it's not going to be good.
Yeah. What do you consider essential seasoning of spaghetti?
Oregano?
What are you calling the weaker characters?
Onion?
That's what I was wondering.
Well, okay. Can I say I think that Shirley is a weaker character, and here is why. I
like Shirley.
I think she's I think she's an essential seasoning. I think you need her. I think she adds a lot of flavor to it. I love her on it, and when she's not on the show, you do feel it. You do feel her missing, her presence missing on the show.
Yeah.
But she does not have a lot of. She doesn't have a great character arc. She doesn't have a lot of growth. She sort of is a stereotype of a Christian who is just sort of, and there's not a lot of growth in that either. And to me, she's not one of those characters that is a part of Dan Harmon. Dan Harmon is not like an uber Christian. He's not a black woman with children. No, for real. I mean, he doesn't have those people in him. And I would be willing to bet, I am sure there were definitely females in that writing room. I would be willing to bet that there weren't women of color or mothers who are Christian and stuff like that. I feel like she didn't have good representation in the writers' room. And so she does have a few episodes where she gets a good story that plot that revolves around her, but for the most part, she's a side character, albeit I think an important side character. When she leaves, you do feel it missing, but she's not. It's not the impact of a Troy or something. No. Although,
along with her, another one that didn't get picked is. And I don't really think of her as a side character, but no, Annie.
I always picked Annie.
I love Annie.
So Lou, tell me about Annie because
her growth through the show.
Yeah,
she's fantastic.
But
okay, talk to me about Annie because I felt like Annie was also kind of like Shirley to me.
No, because Annie, but listen, the actress that plays Annie is such.
Oh, she's amazing.
She's amazing
awesome.
At commitment. She commits to everything so wholeheartedly.
Yeah, Glow's great.
Yeah, she's so fully committed that even though she's super irritating as a character, it's like so fun to watch her just go completely into it. Yeah.
Well, and then like I love in the later, like what is it, season 3, I guess, when she roommates with Troy and Abed, and they have that whole little dynamic.
Yeah.
Because that like she's basically has to be like the mom of the two like little kids that are just can't like do anything real.
I didn't love them trying to pair her and Jeff together as a relationship. I didn't love that.
Yeah. The whole like her having a crush on him was fine, but then when they tried to make it real,
well, Jeff's like in love with her by the end of the season.
It just got weird because it seemed kind of predatory from the beginning, and then they tried to make it more of like...
for sure. I don't like that at all.
And then they tried to make it more of like, oh, it's okay, it's a thing, but like clearly Jeff Winger is a predatory person.
Yeah,
like,
it might have been reflective
problematic.
of the behind-the-scenes stuff, right? Like, I mean, by behind-the-snes, Dan Harmon is pursuing this writer who's clearly telling him no and is much younger than him. So, I don't know. So,
season 3, Dan Harmon gets fired at the end of it. And part of it was because he was becoming more erratic and harder to work with and stuff like that. But then it's been revealed later because, do you know her name, Lou? The woman that
I can't think of it right now. It's terrible, but...
Mac's looking her up.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Okay.
Let's see.
Megan Gantz.
Oh, Megan.
Her name is Megan Gantz.
Megan Gantz. And she's a good comedy writer. She does other shows, too. I can't remember what.
Yeah,
but I've seen stuff.
All kinds of stuff now.
So she tweeted to Dan Harmon and called him out, and then he, on Harmontown, did a 15-minute, obviously not written. I mean, nothing Dan Harmon does is written. He's very just...
Well, except for the stuff that he writes.
Okay. I mean, except for Community,
which would be
the show we're
talking
about, the characters we're discussing.
Except for Rick and Morty.
Yeah, she's a producer on Modern
Rick and Morty, all the things that he does in his career.
Basically, everything that he makes money for.
I'm sorry.
For.
Harmontown is completely improvised. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's one of the beautiful things about it. But he goes in and does this improvised. He brings up, tells the story, and he apologizes. And what he says in it is basically, he sort of reveals that he thinks that's one of the reasons he was fired from the show, is that he was acting like an asshole and like a jerk because of this, which is he was pursuing this woman, trying to have a relationship with her, which is inappropriate because it's in the workplace, but also because she didn't really want it. And then it becomes even more inappropriate because he starts to, as she does not return his, it never gets physical, but as he does not, the part where it becomes bad is that as she does not return his affection, he starts to be an asshole to her, and he's her boss.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's the fucked up part.
So
and he
if you listen to
in
This
the
American Life, they do her side of the story, which I think is really important. But what happened is he kind of apologizes in this like vague way on Twitter, and then she like tweets back at him, "Care to be more specific?" And so it starts this whole conversation.
So wait, did he apologize, or did she ask him to apologize first?
No, I think he just apologized like vaguely, and then she's like, "Care to be more specific?" And then he said something like, "I'm willing to do whatever you want to make this better." And then she's like, "Hey," thinking to herself, not my responsibility to make you fucking feel better, right? Like, So anyway, very interesting episode.
It is, and I don't want to absolve Dan Harmon, but one of the great things about him is that is what I was talking about before, about how he knows that he has these faults.
Oh, yeah.
And he will acknowledge it. And in the podcast, I mean, he is very it is the best apology I've heard.
Well, and she even says that. She's like, this is the kind of apology you dream of. When you're a woman, and that like all these women wrote her and said like, I am being healed through this apology to you. Like, so many people need to hear this. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have to like harp on it forever, but it's just it's one of those things that and he becomes, as a human being, the real Dan Harmon, I think, becomes someone you can love because he's flawed and he's admitting it in a way that I think is the best he can do, right?
Yeah, and also we I don't think we should like laud his show or him and not talk about this. So I mean, it's good that we're talking about it. So
back to the show, yeah.
So Dan Harmon, extensions of him. Abed, that's his like on the spectrum part of him, his appreciation of film and show, and I think,
is that even appreciation? Would you call that appreciation?
Yeah,
it's borderline like obsession.
It's like Tarantino. I mean, people love Tarantino and think that he's this amazing filmmaker, but all he really does is just regurgitate all the stuff he watched when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing. I mean, that's what he's doing. He's regurgitating all the stuff that he loved.
Halfway likes Tarantino.
Because
people who like Tarantino really love.
Oh, they love Tarantino. Like I like a few of his movies, but I get to the point where it's like, we get it, you're Tarantino. Like, you can calm down now.
Just like the same stuff?
Yeah. I don't like his use of the N-word. I don't think he should use it.
You don't think so?
No.
Samuel said it was fine.
He uses it.
Oh, okay, one person vouched for him.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think his most recent
Samuel
film
L. Jackson's
is the least Tarantino-y of all his films until like the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Samuel L. Jackson's eyes in that scene on Pulp Fiction do not say that it's fine because he comes out of character in that scene 100%. If you watch that scene, he's definitely coming out of character.
Yeah.
Anyway, but back to Abed. Who's doing Abed? Lou, you're doing Abed.
Yeah.
I can't remember Troy and Abed. Y'all both have them.
Yeah, they're the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
One unit split.
Except
I would
Abed
say
is
that
better.
Troy. I think that what makes Abed a great character is that we talk about plot drivers a lot in this show, which is like I think that Abed central to the plot on a lot of episodes and pushes the plot on a lot. I mean, probably 60-70% of the episodes.
I think Abed is the wizard behind the curtain, man. Like,
yeah, he's Dan Harmon. He's his brain.
I think that. Well, what I like most about Abed is that I feel like, and maybe this is like too on the nose, but on the Dice episode,
yes,
I feel like the one iteration.
Yeah,
where Abed was gone was like the worst timeline.
When Abed,
just like the emotional heart of those.
Yeah, Abed was gone. Was that the one where the bad timeline happens?
Yeah, the bad timeline.
I think so. Yeah, and then when Jeff is gone is when
the best timeline.
When everything good happens, and that's the asshole part of Dan Harmon. I think Jeff Winger is an extension of Dan Harmon. It's the side that doesn't want to empathize with anybody. And thinks they're better than anybody, and he makes him a lawyer because Dan Harmon will argue something until you're not his friend or his girlfriend or his wife anymore. He got divorced.
And Jeff Winger is the part of him that hits on a writer in his, on his show that won't reciprocate. Yeah.
And then Pierce, Abed, Jeff, and then I think the last person that is a true extension of Dan Harmon is Britta, because she is, and Britta's original character, because honestly, I think the show fucked up Britta's character, but at the start of the show, Britta is a very strong character. I really enjoy watching her because she's got a power over Jeff. Like, Jeff likes her, and she's just like, who are you? Who cares about you? Kind of thing. She's way cooler than him. And then by the end of the show, she's cooler because she's just she blows him off. Like, she just walks by him, and she makes Jeff Winger, who thinks he's cool, feel like dirt.
But Jeff Winger is cool.
And Britta then becomes, by the end of the show, she becomes the character that everyone shits on and is like annoying. And she becomes like Jeff by the end of the show, and then Jeff becomes like the lovable, like whatever kind of character.
They kind of switch.
It sucks for Britta's character. But Britta at the beginning is like really powerful and strong. She is the like liberal activist who is not really doing anything but pretending. And Dan Harmon, that is a big part of Dan Harmon. He comes in Harmontown all the time.
Speaking of her being a liberal activist not doing anything, do you guys remember the episode? I just watched this one. This will be good for your Chang argument, where Chang becomes the security guard, and then Britta's like hungry to be an activist again, and so like the two of them are this perfect combination, and they keep playing Lionel Richie every time. Every time they're
episode?
every time they're in a scene together, Lionel Richie starts playing. Hello.
Jesus. Because Chang needs a
they need each other. They need each other.
A fascist needs a
you need a cause to rail against.
Yeah, so she's like
awesome.
in a cage in the hall pouring like paint on the world, and he's like dragging her cage down the hall. It's amazing.
And without her, he would have nothing to do.
Exactly. Because it's still just a shitty community cause. Nothing happens. There's no need to have a security guard at all.
What were you going to say about Britta?
Oh, my favorite scene about Britta, which is exactly that, is whenever there's the other security guard, not Chang, just some random character, and she's like, I'm an English major, words are my weapons. And the dude's like, I'm a security guard, weapons are my weapons. Which is just like, it's like all talk but no fangs to the...
Oh, that sums up her character,
Yeah, because she is just all talk. And then
Dan Harmon is like that, though. He comes on Harmontown, he's got a lot of bluster, and he rails against stuff, but then immediately after he rails against it, he's like, but I'm not fucking doing anything about it, so who cares anyway? And so he's very much like you, your thought process on stuff like, whatever recycling, like blah, 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 and you'll be like, whatever.
You're talking about me,
I'm talking about you, Matt.
Matt. That is absolutely true. I do believe in all these things.
You believe in them, but you are not going to fight for them.
Exactly.
But Britta,
a terrible person.
No. Britta is someone who believes in them and pretends that she fights for them.
Which makes it even worse.
Which is worse.
So in a way, she's the alcoholic in him, even though nobody on the show really drinks. But
Shirley, it turns out Shirley has like an alcoholic past. That's like revealed.
Yeah, that's right.
And And in the dark timeline, she becomes an alcoholic again.
Oh, I forgot about the whole dark timeline arc.
And Jeff loses an arm, and Britta dies.
You always got to lose an arm.
Britta dyes one strand of hair green. She dyes a strand of her hair green, and she's like, "Man, everything's so awful." And Jeff's like, "I lost an arm. You dyed a piece of your hair green." Like,
true.
Yeah, which again leads to Britta's like shell, But I think they made Britta sort of the
scapegoat,
not the heel, but like almost like a scapegoat or like a character you shit on.
Exactly. You needed someone.
She becomes like the Dwight Schrute of
exactly.
That
Yeah. You needed someone that just everybody can just rail on and like is just kind of dumb because again she's not too bright. Again, in the beginning, you make it seem like she's maybe has her stuff together, but then as it goes on,
maybe that's good writing. Yeah.
She falls off and it picks away.
Yeah,
but it's the same thing with some of the other characters.
One character. So you're doing Troy.
Yeah, well, like with Troy in the beginning.
That's what I was going to say.
In the beginning, he's this macho, like real angry, like he's this tough guy.
Yeah.
But then as the show goes on, he is like the most sensitive person there is, and gets his feelings hurt.
Are you giving Dan credit? Are you giving them credit for it's a complex character? Is what you're saying?
Well, yeah.
Here's my opinion. Go for it.
Well, no, I'm just saying I like that at the beginning because you can still tell that like it's all an act in the beginning. Like in the very beginning, you can tell that he's playing. Yeah. He's playing tough because he wants to be that. I'm the high school athlete. Yeah. I rule this place, but then now he's at the community college.
Yeah. Community college is like an extension of high school. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's 13th grade.
I went to community college, and
oh my god, me too.
Yeah,
me as well.
And Dan,
oh my gosh, here we go. Look at this.
And so did Dan Harmon. And
oh my god,
awesome.
Hey.
So maybe that's why we like the show.
See, there you go.
But I think what Dan is doing. So he's got those four characters that I mentioned, Pierce, Abed, Britta, and Jeff, who I feel like are him. And then I feel like the other characters are Dan going like, what did I experience at a community college? An old guy who's like going back to school and doesn't quite know why. A young girl who was a bright star, but then like had some drug issues, so now she's at a community college. Yeah. An athlete who got injured, who's now in the community college. So I feel
because he didn't have the grades, so his
this
scholarship
is
goes away.
Based
so therefore,
on Harmon's personal experience at community college. You guys know that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
So and then Shirley is like the Christian mom who wants to like start a business or whatever.
Yeah.
And I guess that is a cool arc. She ends up starting a business.
That's a whole ep.
But what I was going to say about it is I feel like Troy was supposed to start as a jock and stuff like that, and I think he becomes not that because Dan Harmon and his writers don't know what to write.
They don't know how to write that because
that's why.
I think that they were like
a bunch of writers.
They were like
in a
it's
room
better.
that don't know anything about sports. Like it's going to come off weird if you try to make this guy.
Dan Harmon literally knows nothing about sports.
Like, let's go toss the basketball around, or like, no, that's a football.
One of the running jokes.
It'll basically be like The Room, where they're, the wedding, where they're just throwing the ball around like they've never. Actually, my friend's wedding. That was the photos we took.
That's amazing.
We all walked down.
Lou, you know what he's talking about?
We walked to the thing, tossing a football to each other like we've never seen a football before in our life.
Yeah.
And the wedding photographer is looking at us like we are the most insane people in the world.
I love it.
And this is also the same wedding where my other friend wore a Brash. If you for the Portland person who doesn't live in Houston, Brash is a brewery in Houston that is known for being like kind of the
Brash,
basically. And so their shirt,
that's good branding.
Their shirt is basically has 666 on it, and it's like the most evil brewery.
That's educating.
And so he wore that to the rehearsal at the church, and we're sitting there in the church, and the preacher is just looking at him with this shirt with the upside down cross and all this stuff on it.
So if you want to make
a fun wedding,
if you want to make a shitty product, but like get edgelords to buy your product, just put 666 on it, upside down crosses, and name it something like Brash.
But actually, Brash is pretty good though. No, Brash is good though.
The product is fine.
No, the product is good, and then. But their whole bit is that like they're like the anti everything.
So it's the opposite for me. They have a good product, but I don't buy into their branding, so I will never purchase Brash.
See, there you go. Yeah.
So it works for some, but not for others.
That's true. It happens.
But Satanists are a growing market, so
what Satanism?
Satanists are a growing market. I was saying, I don't know, probably.
Is that correlating to the rise of Dungeons and Dragons in America?
I think so.
Yeah.
Hey, and you know what? You got to thank Stranger Things.
Community,
if you like it or not.
Community did D&D first.
They did.
Love that episode.
But for the younger kids,
that's a strong
the younger
episode.
kids now, it's gonna be Stranger Things. But now. Because of Community is probably why they put it on Stranger Things.
They did the Model UN.
They did the Model UN that felt like a D&D game.
Yes,
Yeah, it
yes.
did. Yeah.
There were a lot of episodes.
The D&D episode is great because, well, and see, okay, here's the other thing I like about the show. One-liners are great.
Yes.
Everybody gets one-liners.
The episodes are meta and crazy, but then it really does do a really good job of getting into like psychology a lot of these episodes. And I think that the D&D episode it's all about this guy who's like suicidal, basically, who's like a hardcore nerd, Fat Neil,
Fat Neil, yeah.
who is suicidal, and like literally the D&D episode saves him. And Pierce, who is usually the heel, usually the jerk in the group,
Gets really into it.
Yeah, gets into it and ends up being essential to saving him.
Fulfills that role.
He still fulfills that role. Yeah. Chang. Chang later evolves as a character too, like I was saying, Troy does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's out of necessity.
I feel like by the Pillow Fort episode, they like
Pillow Fort, yeah.
Pillow Fort's a good one. They explicitly
really
say
good.
Pillow Fort,
he's the weakest character. It's so easy to make him cry. These are all the things that he does.
Oh, Troy?
Yeah, Troy. That's what we talked about Troy.
Abed breaks him down.
Yeah. Because they know each other so
They do a really great episode. The episode with the trampoline where
the Secret Garden episode.
God, I love that episode.
The payoff in that episode is so delicious.
Well, where Troy and Abed, oh my god, yeah, where the guy is racist.
Totally.
Like, well, there was some
The guy
signs.
is Mike McClintock from Veep. Yeah, Mike McClintock from Veep, who's amazing in that show. I can't remember his name in real life.
It's so funny too because Troy, the dude says to Troy, "Some people are just natural jumpers," and then like you're like even as an audience member, you're kind of like, "What? What? Oh, that was weird."
You just don't get it. Yeah.
But you're like, that's weird, but I guess that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that was okay. Like, he didn't mean it that way.
Yeah, and there's no way he meant it. Oh, no, he did.
The way they shot it was very surreal. Like this secret garden, and it's just like there's a filter over everything.
And Pierce ruins it on his first jump by getting injured, and and suing. But the B story on that episode is actually my favorite part of it, which is Abed. The girls all go and join a like feminist class or whatever, and Abed decides to go with them because he doesn't care about sports. He doesn't want to play basketball with Jeff and Troy. And Pierce is just with Jeff and Troy because he wants to be one of the guys.
Yeah. He wants to feel young again and just be be one of the cool guys.
Yeah.
And one of the cool kids.
He's probably the most insecure after the dean. Pierce is so insecure.
Oh, this is the episode where Abed's inner bitch comes out.
Abed is it's RoboCop parody.
Right,
it's a RoboCop parody.
Right.
Yeah, he has that like that stereotypical autistic level of like analysis and like being able to say like this and that about, being very frank about things, which like, I've worked in like life skills classes where it's like they try to tease that out, like we don't talk about people's this, we don't talk about people's that. And so, this Abed, who's this character on the spectrum, is like, I'm not supposed to say these things, but then
you put him in a situation where he's not accountable anymore, and then he becomes.
Well, they tell him the target. The target is women who are bitches, but then they become bitches, and so then they become targets as well. It's so freaking good, and it's
great.
like a RoboCop parody.
I like how you just messaged me.
Yeah.
Or messaged the group about how we shouldn't be referring to women as bitches, but now within the context of the show, we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Come on, nerds. You know what it is. Every episode I get on here and beg you to follow us and like our stuff and blah, 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 blah. If you haven't done it by now, then you're just lazy. Twitter and Instagram at YFCSPod. Hit the subscribe button. Like, rate it. If you want to be extra, you can review it. Just a little thing like, hey, this is an awesome podcast. Click, reviewed, done. All right, not going to waste any more of your time. Back to the show.
One of my favorite things about all of Community is when they're trying to get Troy in the air conditioner repair program, and and John Goodman takes him into the room, and he says, "You've heard of room temperature? This is the room."
This is the room.
It's just one of the best things that ever happened on television.
Yeah. Literally, well, that's the best part about. So that's another great part. I feel like we're just talking about the show. We're not talking about our characters, but that's a great part of Community. Is that the show is so detached from reality that they can just say whatever they want, and because of that, the lines are amazing. Like I think I shared it with you.
You just have to accept it as reality.
I think I shared it with you on the group, but like they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna kick your butt, and then Pierce comes back the next day and is like, I'm gonna slit your butt's throat. And it's the most insane thing.
Nobody would ever say that.
It reminds me of 30 Rock. Like 30 Rock, they just say insane things all the time.
You think the writing for that, like how does that?
Troy, Donald Glover was a writer on 30 Rock, so I wonder if that translated. I mean, he wasn't a writer.
And he was really young when he wrote for 30 Rock too, like crazy young.
He's still young now.
Well, young now. He's younger than us or our age?
Yeah, he's in his 30s, so he's
in his 30s?
A little older?
Yeah.
He's a little older.
I think he's about my age. He's like 34, 35,
I remember he was
36,
on
somewhere around there.
YouTube. He was on YouTube with Bobby Moynihan, who was on SNL.
Yeah.
Him and they started on like YouTube, making YouTube videos.
They had like a little
I remember
comedy
seeing
troupe.
it, yeah.
They had a comedy troupe, and they made a movie, Mystery Men. I think it was
Mystery Man. Yeah, I think so.
Mystery Men. It was something like that, where they were like kind of superheroes, but not really. And
I can't remember
so
what was the. They had a great YouTube video that was like the most viral one before viral was even a thing.
Yeah.
Where like for
He's
some reason there was a
36, by
huge
the way.
black.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
36.
there we go.
There was a
36. So, yeah,
huge.
that's how old I am. So
They were like investigating something. It was almost like a Dateline type thing, and they were investigating something. And they like go through their backpacks, and inside of Donald Glover's backpack is like a huge black dildo. And I can't remember why.
What are you talking about?
We'll
it was
look it up afterwards.
it was
a YouTube video. They were just making a Dateline parody. And they go through his backpack to look for whatever they were looking for, and they end up finding that. And he's like, I can explain that. And like, it's just really funny. It's stupid. I can't remember what it is though.
Yeah.
But anyway, Troy. When he leaves the show,
it definitely hurts. It just felt weird because like
it's a great episode though.
It is a good episode. When he leaves, it's a good episode. But then afterwards, you could tell that like
there were good episodes afterwards.
Yeah, there was good episodes, but you could tell they still wanted him in there, so they would have him just randomly pop up and like just like a random.
Did they have him make appearances?
He would randomly pop up when he was at the AC school. He would just randomly pop up, or they would like. They
referred to him being. He was on a boating trip with LeVar Burton. Or
yes.
something.
Yes.
Such a specific.
Now the LeVar Burton where he's like never meet your heroes because all he wanted to do was just meet LeVar Burton, but then when he met him, it just wasn't the same, and he just like ruined everything for him.
The problem wasn't with LeVar Burton.
No,
it was with Troy.
It was with Troy. It was definitely with Troy.
LeVar was a perfect gentleman.
He was a perfectly like normal human being.
Well, LeVar Burton is not a normal human being because I have listened to him guest comp troll on Harmontown 3 times.
We're not talking about actual LeVar Burton.
And LeVar on the show.
Yeah, the LeVar Burton. I love LeVar Burton because I love Reading Rainbow and I love Star Trek: The Next Generation. I wish y'all would watch all of it so that we could talk about Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah,
they're such jerks.
I'm not gonna watch hundreds of hours.
I would watch any show that they all wanted to talk about, but I don't have good friends.
I think
we literally talked about how you wouldn't watch some anime because it's too long.
I'm gonna steer the ship back on track here for a second.
Okay, thank you. Please. We've actually been so on track. I'm surprised.
I know, right?
Yeah.
This is insane.
Part of what I love about the show is kind of what we've talked. Like, I like Jonathan that you're kind of getting really meta and like digging into like these are all different aspects of Dan Harmon's brain, and I think that that's what makes it so intellectually interesting. But I also think that what makes at least me super drawn to the show is literally this community of people. Like, there's something so comforting to me about like. It's like a family thing. It's like you love these people.
It is a standard community college.
Yeah.
But then the cool thing about it is they're all outcasts, which is funny because...
there's outcasts from the outcasts,
but
like study group.
What's amazing...
And that's what made them all come together, is that none of them had a group.
What's amazing about it is if a majority of the study group is an extension of Dan Harmon's self... then that means that every part of Dan Harmon is an outcast. You know what I mean? Like, he is a pure outcast because literally every part of him is an outcast. And they all find a community together as outcasts. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and that's why when characters leave, it's so sad, and it's just like this uncomfortable.
Okay, that could be true.
Oh man, and you know what? Too, they also because they also, in a way that doesn't happen on every show. You know, not every show is like. For instance, like 30 Rock, not every character is like broken in a different way.
Yeah.
Whereas like I feel like on Community, each character is broken in a specific way where other characters complete them.
Yeah.
Troy and Abed, they kind of complete each other, but then they also need a little bit of either Annie or Shirley to kind of complete them.
The whole community is codependent. I mean, it really is. It's like anytime they even talk about or joke about changing one character, it's like everything blows up. Like the beginning of the 3rd season, Pierce isn't there for a minute, and then he shows up, but like Jeff's super pissed that he's there, and like I don't know if you guys remember that episode, but like they're all in a biology class together, but Pierce doesn't get in, and then he manipulates Jeff out of the class. This whole thing, but it's like just the threat of there being like a change in the structure of the whole. Yeah,
I feel like with the exception of Jeff, I feel like just. Per the Dice episode, if you remove Jeff from the group is just better.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't. Well, okay, things go better. Things go better, and it's also Jeff at that point because, like I said, Jeff grows by the end.
Yeah,
but But honestly, that's another point I was going to bring up about that episode, because that episode is a character study. It's literally saying take these characters out and what happens, right? And so you take Britta out, that is probably the most normal thing. Like literally when you take Britta out, nothing goes bad, nothing goes great. It's like almost nothing changes.
Yeah,
and that's kind of an indictment on...
The world goes on.
To me, that's kind of an indictment on where her character was at that point, where it's like...
No one cares.
It wasn't that strong. Yeah, I feel like her character was sort of relegated to being almost a background character more than a front character, which is funny because... third season and then fourth season is where Dan Harmon is taken out of the show, and he's kicked off because he was being an asshole, which had underlying issues we talked about already.
Well, that's reasonable.
And then he gets brought back because the fourth season, the heart of that show is missing in the fourth season. And I'm not someone who's like, there's a lot of people who are like, I didn't watch it because I was protesting because of Dan Harmon. I watched it.
I watched it,
and I
yeah.
tried to enjoy it, but there's a lot
yeah.
of... But there's a lot of awkward shit on it, like Donald Glover and Britta having a relationship makes no sense.
Yeah,
it's very weird, and you could argue for those two writers, the guys who took up the show, that Britta and Donald Glover did have some moments on the earlier season where they kind of it looked like a relationship could happen. But I think that Dan Harmon and the other writers knew better that it would not be good. So I think they were teasing it and then didn't. I mean, Jeff Winger and Britta was teased and it never really happened.
Yeah, but it at least made more sense.
It made more sense.
The Winger and Britta.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're both too cool for each other.
Yeah, the Troy and Britta just seemed weird. It
didn't make any sense.
And again, it goes back to Troy and
their characters don't overlap.
He's so like naive and childish.
Yeah.
That it just felt weird. That like
why would a liberal activist person who thinks they're like better than a lot of stuff, why would she want to be with a guy like that? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And why would he want to be with her?
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway,
love is love.
Love is love.
Love is weird.
That was the message Dan Harmon was trying to say.
It's like some weird.
Love is love is love.
Well, we're like the little D&D kid.
Show, so.
Yeah, he wasn't there.
The kid who loves D&D ends up dating like the head cheerleader. It just doesn't seem like it fits. It doesn't.
Yeah, that's every fat male writer. White, straight, fat male writer who's trying to...
this is why we need women in the writers' rooms.
We're talking about Dan Harmon specifically.
Yeah.
You're calling Dan Harmon a fat, white
male, straight, writer.
Right.
Yeah, he is. He's all those things.
Yeah, that seems
and
fair.
he will admit all those things.
Yeah, it happens.
He will admit it. You can't... I mean, it's true, but also he'll admit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you white? Yes, he'll always say yes when you ask him. He'll never lie. He'll never say he's not white. But, okay. Anyway...
So who haven't we spoken about?
Well, we haven't mentioned any other honorable mentions. Do you have any honorable mentions you want to throw out?
Have we even talked about Abed?
A little bit.
We're gonna get in, we talked about Abed a lot. I think because he's a driver of the plot. I think we'll probably get back to them in the end with our categories because I feel like this show is just honorable mentions. Magnitude.
Starburns is a good one.
Starburns is a very close personal friend of Dan Harmon in real life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was a writer on.
Sorry, I had to go back to Magnitude for a second.
Pop is Magnitude. Yeah.
Yeah. Pop.
Magnitude's great.
There's a lot of dumb flavor characters.
A lot of dumb flavor characters.
Todd.
Leonard.
What about
Leonard.
Todd?
Leonard is great.
Who's Todd again?
Todd. Well, I just watched.
Is Todd the guy with the big mouth? Like
no,
the
he's like
guy?
the guy with the curly hair, and he's just sort of. There's an episode where he's. They have
he's
to partner
crazy.
with him in that biology class, and like
Todd, he's got a huge
everyone's
curly
just,
throat.
he's just like just all kicking the shit out of him.
He just looks crazy. Like he
what
just looks crazy.
What were you saying? They do what?
They all get partnered up in a biology class, but then there's 7 of them, so they have to have Todd as the 8th guy, and it's just like everyone's just kicking the shit out of him the whole episode, and he's just like holding a turtle, like trying to go home, but they don't. Anyway,
well, he has some like creepy moments later on where he's like seems like a serial killer.
Yeah, no, it's creepy.
But
Leonard's great though.
Leonard's a great character.
Leonard is great because Leonard. So I was watching one episode, the final episode where they're pitching a 7th season, and Leonard is part of in one of the pitches. Leonard is part of the table, and he's part of the group.
It's easier to talk about who is like a bad character. Who do you not like from Community?
There's that Civil War Pillow Fort episode that's amazing, and Leonard does a great job on that episode of being. Sure. He's a side character who talks about stuff a lot, and. Okay, anyway, now I remember what the Leonard line was. So he's at the table on the pitch, and he goes, man, I haven't seen as many zeros, like he's talking about like their score. I haven't seen as many zeros as I did in Pearl Harbor. Yeah. And he goes, and there were a lot, and they kept coming. And there was so much screaming. And like he just keeps going, and like it gets super dark. It's hilarious. But Leonard is usually like just effing around, and like he's a party boy. He's the party boy of the college, but he's like an old dude.
Like 90 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, well then there's John Oliver's character.
John Oliver's on it too.
Yeah, the professor that's just a horrible person.
He wants to become famous.
Yeah.
That's his thing. He wants to become famous off the back of one of these broken people.
Yes.
They're all broken.
Yeah.
So like the Christmas episode where they're all claymation.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Abed, I hate claymation, but I love that.
Abed sees everyone in claymation because he's like repressing feelings about his mom. Right? It's pretty musical because of that, because it's the claymation stuff, yeah. Abed makes it musical.
Good.
But he makes it's like a Willy Wonka / Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer claymation mashup.
Yeah, I put it closer to like Rudolph.
But it's Willy Wonka because every time a character wants to leave the situation, they sing them off like Willy Wonka. You know? Like in that movie. And Pierce is the last one with him, I think, which is kind of interesting. But
they also have Michael Kenneth Williams teaches the biology class, which is pretty great.
Who's that? What else has he been in?
He's on The Wire. He's
Jonathan
on,
Banks. Was in the last was in the 5th season. Jonathan Banks
Professor.
from Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Oh.
He was what is he?
Right.
He was one of the
Jonathan
professors, Professor Buzz Hickey.
Yeah. He was like there to replace Pierce in a way, but not really. He wasn't he wasn't racist or anything.
Oh, Jerry the janitor.
But
Jerry the janitor.
Michael Kenneth Williams was Omar Little on The Wire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure
Omar,
you guys know who he is. Yeah. Anyway, he was the biology teacher, which is pretty great, and he had like just gotten out of prison, and he talks about how he got his PhD.
Yeah.
Took him like 6,000 hours to get his PhD.
Yes.
Rewatching the show, I also noticed how many cameos there are, because there are actually
so many people in the show.
Like literally, the first season, almost every episode has like an actor who is a great comic actor on it.
Yeah.
What's the dude who plays Buster in Arrested Development? Who's on Veep?
Yes. Yeah. I can't think of his name.
I can't think of his name, but he's
Tony Hale.
Tony Hale.
Yeah.
He's
Tony
the
Hale.
pottery teacher in the first season where they start doing ghosting, and he points to a sign. He's like, "No ghosting."
Yeah. Brie Larson's on a couple episodes. Like.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's right.
Rob Corddry.
Yeah, they do a
Rob
lot.
Corddry's like his asshole.
Kevin Corrigan is one of the professors. So yeah, there's a lot of and again, it's a bunch of comedy writers. So it's a lot of their friends. So it's going to be a lot of comedy people that just kind of show up because it's like, hey, I got this show. You want to come be a character?
Jack Black is on.
Right.
Yeah.
And Jack Black.
That's because Dan Harmon did stuff with Tenacious D back in the day, and so again, hey, I got this show. You want to come be on it?
Jack Black starred in his failed show, which I can't remember the name of it, but they had one. It was the most expensive pilot in TV history at that point.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was. I hope I'm getting that anecdote correct, but it was.
It's all just disseminating false information.
It was Jack Black, and he was like. What is the show where the car talks to the guy? Knight Rider.
Yeah.
It was a motorcycle that talked to Jack Black, and like it was like a Knight Rider type parody and stuff like that. Anyway, super expensive budget, and they didn't get past the pilot, and so for a while, Dan Harmon and his friend Rob
Malcolm McDowell
couldn't get hired. Rob Schraub, who's great. They couldn't get a job because they had spent so much of studio's money and like messed up a pilot. So,
Oops.
let's do this, which is who's the most popular character? I'm saying it's probably going to be Troy or Abed.
Yeah.
Right? But which one?
I would say.
I'm gonna say
depends on
popular.
what
I'm gonna say Troy, just because people who don't really know Community are still gonna know who Donald Glover is.
Yeah, I wish Danny Pudi would find a good project because I love Danny Pudi.
He's great, but that's
he was in one thing after that, like it was like a superhero comedy.
God, I know.
But it didn't take off.
No.
Yeah.
So do you think Troy's more popular than Abed, or?
I would just say outside of the show.
And
yes.
you kind of get to see him.
Now inside of the show, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Like, would fans of the show be like,
outside
Troy,
of the show, of
like,
course,
Troy's my
but
favorite?
inside the show, I don't know who I would say is the most popular.
We're not talking about best character. We're talking about who's the
Yeah.
favorite, who's a fan favorite.
Well, it's either Troy or Abed.
Yeah.
I think it's personal.
That's the thing. It's
to
a
me,
lot
it
of
really
times
feels
because again
personal.
they kind of are a package deal.
I think it's going to be Troy, Abed, or Dean. I feel like the Dean is so funny that I think a lot of people are going to. I think me and Brandon and Matt love the Dean.
The Dean is great, but I don't know if anyone is gonna like besides y'all three.
He's my favorite.
Dean is great.
He's also my favorite character.
He's not the best character, but he's my favorite character. Maybe, right? Okay, so who is the most well-rounded character, three-dimensional? Like they're really thought out. They make sense. They make decisions that aren't just like this is for the plot. Like Pierce would be a bad example because Pierce is just making decisions to further the plot, right? I don't know. Who's more complex? Basically, is it Chang, Troy, Abed, or the Dean? I feel like the Dean is also pretty one note.
Yeah.
He's
there to deliver.
He's there to deliver the jokes,
whatever
right?
device or whatever.
If with Abed, with the whole like the family thing, with
Abed's family comes up
with the family,
it explores,
and explores kind of why he is the way he is, and then when he does try to go off and do his things that he wanted to do, like when Britta gets him to go and do all the film stuff, he doesn't really do the film. He does, but he doesn't. He kind of still does the Abed thing where he delves too deep into it and doesn't really do what he's supposed to.
Yeah. I think his character has the most depth, probably.
Yeah.
Because Abed. He's the most complex. And it's what's really cool about it is, I would say, probably the first character who is on the spectrum, who is really a very important character in the show and not made fun of, really. He's like, one thing I hate about Big Bang Theory is, like, a lot of people love Big Bang Theory, but in my opinion, it's a lot of like cheap nerd jokes, and like I don't feel like that's what Abed's there for. I don't think he's there to be laughed at.
Yeah. Have you watched Atypical?
I've not watched it
on Netflix. It's really good, and that's the thing is the main character
is on the spectrum,
is on the spectrum, and then the actual guy who plays him isn't on the spectrum. But then they have a lot of people who are actual autistic actors in the show to kind of play with, and it's that thing where it's not used as like there are funny moments.
Yeah, but it's not because we're not saying
you're not laughing
that guy's
at
weird.
him. Yeah, you're not laughing at him. You're kind of laughing with him. And the fact that because he's so just,
I feel like the other
real,
characters on Community judge Abed because of how he's weird. But I think as an audience, we're not.
No. You like, and again, you feel for him, and again, because he doesn't have that filter.
Yeah.
He can say the stuff that people want to say, but they're afraid to because it's going to hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
He can say that.
I feel like there are enough people on the spectrum in real life now that we have to have characters that are not just being mocked. You know?
Yeah.
I mean. Yeah, we need to reflect actual society. And
so, yeah, exactly. So most popular, Troy and Abed, somewhere around there.
For sure.
Yeah. Most complex, Abed.
I'll say Abed.
Funniest, because it's a comedy. Yeah. Which character makes you laugh the most?
True.
I think the Dean is the most consistently funny.
He's so good.
I think every line he says is hilarious.
Yeah,
every time the Dean appears...
The Dean is the clown.
He's the clown.
Yeah.
The Dean is the clown.
He's the jester.
Yeah.
I think the Dean is the funniest.
Yeah.
Every line he says makes me laugh.
It's just...
Yeah.
And it's just really pushing.
And that guy's also, what is his name? I want to know what his name is. I've relegated you to be my research person, even though you're my guest.
I know. It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
I can look it up.
I only know because
I know his name. I just can't think of it right now.
I asked Mattson to do research for me once.
I know,
and he did it, but he was not happy about it.
I made a deal out of it.
Jim Rash. Jim Rash.
Jim Rash.
Yeah,
and Jim Rash is brilliant. He's brilliant.
He was also in, was it the Upright Citizens Brigade?
He's brilliant. Yeah, he's great.
He's in the way back. I know that, but he was in a comedy thing before Community, and
he does a show, like a talk show, where they talk about. I feel like they talk about writing and comedy.
Yeah, no, he does. Yeah,
what is that show called? The Green Room or something? Or?
Yeah, the Green Room. Yeah. He does it's almost like the Talking Dead, but without not just about the one show.
Yeah. What was he? Oh, he was in Looney Tunes. What was that?
Yeah, I was trying to.
All right, whatever.
It's a very specific thing.
Okay. So anyway, funniest. Okay, the Dean. Best villain, Chang. I'm trying to
really,
I'm trying to get Chang in there.
It's going to be Chang or Pierce because Pierce.
Well, I was joking about that. I was just trying to get Chang a category.
Yeah, just
most Asian Chang.
Chang.
Oh, there we go.
Was a Spanish teacher.
Most likely to not be a Spanish teacher.
Yeah.
Chang. There we go. You're Chang.
Yeah, I think.
To be fair, I mean, I don't know.
I think Chang is another flavor character.
They brought the whole group together at the beginning. Yeah. Right? That's the reason that they had this study group was for. That's Spanish?
It was before. Yes. It was for Chang's Spanish class.
There you go.
Well, and really, I mean, really, the whole reason
holy
was
crap.
study group.
So Chang is the most important character on the show, basically.
Was to get really the whole reason the study group was there was so Jeff could get into Britta's pants.
Yeah, that's
and then she didn't. She knew that's what he was doing, so then she invited everybody else from the class, which is how they got there. But,
that's right.
One of my honorable mentions, Pierce, also he's a pretty big driver of plot too, because he causes so many issues that he makes them solve. And same thing with Chang. I feel like if it's not an issue that Chang or Pierce created, then it probably isn't an issue. Like usually, it's like they're exploring some emotional state of the characters.
I think it's either. The Dean presents something at the beginning, which escalates into it snowballs.
The Dean can push in ridiculous plots, right?
Yeah,
but
I think the best villain is the monkey that lives in the.
The monkey that lives in the vents.
Annie's boobs.
Yeah,
Annie's boobs.
Annie's boobs.
Annie's boobs.
Yeah.
Can we please call it something else, guys? What's it called?
He says we call it Annie's boobs after Annie's boobs.
Yeah.
Thanks for laying that out for us.
The 8-bit episode, the video game episode, which very near and dear to Dan Harmon's life and heart.
I love that app.
And that's Pierce. That's Pierce driven because it's like his like whole estate or whatever. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, you know who the best like walk on part villain is Pierce's dad.
Who played him?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh, but
I don't remember, but he's like super racist and homophobic and like.
So like Pierce.
He's just.
Yes.
But he's like Pierce on fucking.
Yeah, dialed up
steroids.
tonight.
The worst.
The actor.
He wears an ivory headpiece because he doesn't want to wear a toupee because it's made from like. It's made from like minority hair.
Yes.
Like
Oh,
just
God,
like that.
yes.
He's that racist.
But also his butler is Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad. What's his name? Giancarlo.
Yeah.
The dude from Breaking Bad who who honestly like that's the point where you start on Breaking Bad. We'll talk about that another day.
I'm glad that Bran's not here to hear this.
Brandon and Mattson have decided not to watch Breaking Bad because they're tired of hearing people talk about Breaking Bad.
I've gotten to season 3 and just kind of fell off.
So the point where Walter White,
I'm just saying.
But anyway, the guy who plays Gustavo
does
Fring
look bad in the title. So
is the butler or whatever, the representative for his family. So anyway, that guy's a great actor too. A lot of really good walk-on parts, like you were saying, cameos.
That's what I'm saying. It's hard to determine. I feel like normally I just spend the entire time just shitting on something.
No, there's not much to shit on in Community, man. It's really good.
One of the few shows that I just genuinely enjoy.
Yeah.
You know how I say I don't really like that many things.
Yeah.
But I do like Community.
Yeah.
It's more than okay.
Is there any other categories we want to consider for like what makes a character good? I said 3-dimensional, complex, right?
Yeah.
The funniest in a comedy, that's important.
Best hair.
Yeah.
Best what?
Best hair.
Best hair, is that going to be the Dean?
Dean, yeah.
He has no hair.
I mean, but hey, it's nice.
It's not bad.
Jeff would argue that he has the best hair for sure.
Yeah.
Dean would argue that Jeff has the best hair.
Dean would also say that.
True.
Okay, so I can't think of any other real categories. Plot drivers. We said Abed.
Abed.
We said Abed is pretty much the main plot driver. I would say.
I say if you had to name like a main character, would it be Jeff or would it be Abed?
Yeah, I think it's Jeff at first. Season is Jeff.
The very the first episode at least is definitely Jeff. The first season.
The season finale is. Oh, will they? Won't they? Between him, Britta, and the other female professor that he's into. I mean, that first season tries to be a normal show.
It does. It does try.
But the paintball episode it gives us like a hint of what it'll become. You know.
Yeah, where it kind of drops off the face and
paintball episode is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. If we can't think of any other categories, then
we can only use what is presented to us at this moment.
All right.
Dun, 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 dun. Uh-oh.
Okay. Well, we're going to decide. We're going to do a 3, 2, 1 countdown and decide who we think is the best character.
No, it's not. It has nothing to do.
Oh no, it's not thinking. Sorry, Matt. Explain it. Go ahead.
Look, we've come here to decide. It's not about like thinking. It's about knowing.
Isn't it discovering? Really?
Yeah, I'd say unearthing
We're conduits.
the truth. Yeah, we're like
nice.
Exactly.
We're archaeologists. I mean, the truth is there.
We're just channeling that divine
like
energy of
X-Files.
knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever we say just is.
Yeah, even though half of us will say a different answer.
I think we've all come to a pretty good consensus.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think so too. I think everybody pretty much knows.
All right, 3,
Okay.
2, 1.
Abed.
Sorry, I wanted to go Dean. I wanted you to get your first win.
It's not about winning. It's about discovering the truth.
I think honestly, the reason I went for Abed is what I said before, which is I think the first real best representation of like an autistic character, a character on the spectrum, being a main character.
Yeah,
I don't even care about that stuff.
And not being. I think that's really important.
I think because
I was taking a shower and watching the Dice episode this morning, and I was just like. I'm like, you start taking out all these characters. I was like, first of all, Dean's not even in that character, and the episode is still so good. So I'm like, it can't. I love the Dean.
It was nominated for a science fiction award.
Exactly.
That episode.
So, yeah, but then I'm like,
I have to watch that one. You guys keep referencing it, and I haven't seen it lately. So wait, when we said so how many people said Abed? 3?
3.
Enough. That's all.
Abed, even if it was
3-1.
Okay.
I mean, it was 3-1.
All right.
So, but Dean, I think Dean made it to the final two.
Yeah.
Well, of
Dean
course,
made it to the final
whatever
two. So
character I name is always in the top because
Magneto
because you named him.
Yeah. Oh, it's been named because you named him.
Exactly.
Oh my
What do
god.
I win though, guys?
Foolish.
What do I win?
it's not about winning.
Isn't it?
Yeah, we all discovered it. Well,
just kidding.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know.
A big pat on the back.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't. We're not even there to give it to
I
you.
know.
So.
Yeah, no.
Too far away.
Just imagine that, like, we're patting
All
your back
right.
and saying, "Good
My
job."
arms are long, but not that long.
Yeah,
But not in a Dan Harmon way. Like
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
not in
no.
a creepy way. Not in a creepy way.
I just flew in from Houston. Boy, my arm's tired. All right.
Jesus.
So bad.
Let's
Okay.
That was the worst.
That was absolutely the worst.
And on that note,
That was so bad.
I'm going.
What was that supposed to be?
Instead of my transition sound is
You
usually
sounded like a Hasidic Jew. Like,
my transition sound.
Classical
Yeah, go
joke.
ahead.
yeah, it's a classic. It's a classic.
My transition sound between like ads and stuff like that is usually just like a boom, 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 like it just goes. It's going to be that joke for between every transition now.
please, no.
It's going to be just her saying, and then it'll transition into each thing. Yeah.
Love it.
I can't believe it. We did it again. We figured out who the best character is in whatever we're talking about, despite the podcast being called Your Favorite Character Sucks. Now the only question is, what should we do next? You can help us decide by following us at YFCS Pod on Instagram and Twitter and telling us which show, movie, series, book you think we should do. Until then, hit that subscribe button and catch us on the next episode. Thanks for listening.